Hello, and welcome to the UAN Library Training video regarding the Detailed Appropriation Program Codes. I'm Trina Martin with UAN. Let's begin. Previous trainings you may have attended on this subject were on October 12th of 2022. UAN was invited to present at a webinar hosted by the Ohio Library Council. That webinar was recorded and made available to Ohio libraries through the Ohio Library Council. It was not hosted by UAN, so it's not on our website. The training introduced the subject at the library fiscal officer hands-on level with the UAN software and was intended to show how the fiscal officers could efficiently and effectively use UAN to evaluate their current account code structure, map out the new accounts at the detail program code level, and then add the new accounts in the UAN software for use within the deadlines. At the time of that training, the Auditor of State's Local Government Services announced that they would be putting together some definitions of the detailed program codes and would be releasing that in the spring of 2023 in time to be used for the 2024 tax budget. On March 8, 2023, UAN hosted a library training webinar on this subject. Handouts were provided with draft versions of the program code definitions and frequently asked questions. During the question and answer period of this presentation, it was determined by local government services and audit staff in attendance that changes needed to be made to the program definitions and FAQs. The changes in definition between some of the programs were significant enough to warrant the training recording not to be posted on the UAN website. Our library clients were urged to wait for the definitions and frequently asked questions to be finalized before moving forward with setting up those account codes for the 2024 tax budget. On April 26th, UAN was notified that the program code definitions and frequently asked questions have been approved for release. We received a copy of those documents on April 28th and began preparing this video with the updated information. The first handout provided with this video is the Local Government Services Library FAQs. This document contains frequently asked questions and the detailed program code definition. If you've not already done so, you need to pause this video and print the document and read it through in its entirety. Circle or highlight the significant changes that affect any new program accounts you had already planned to add. The program definitions contain significant changes from the draft version issued with the March webinar. You need to be familiar with this subject before you continue the training. UAN has also provided a PDF of the library chart of accounts. This handout is the same chart of accounts contained in the UAN Accounting and General Manual. We've just pulled it out for convenience at this point in time. Keep in mind that if changes are made to the library chart of accounts later, this PDF would no longer be relevant. You would want to get a fresh copy from the manual. So where are you in this process? Well, we have fiscal officers that are newly appointed. This is the first training they've watched on the subject, and they don't know what I'm talking about yet. We have some fiscal officers that understand this change but have not started the process yet. They were waiting on those final definitions. We have some fiscal officers that have got their spreadsheet completed. They just want to wait for those final definitions to see if anything needs to move. And then we have that last group, the few very motivated fiscal officers who learned about this last year and they said, I'm not putting this off. And they completely changed their account code structure as of January 1st. 2023. So they've already eliminated the 100 and 200 program codes and have been posting live to a new structure this year. They may find with these final program code definitions and frequently asked questions that they're going to need to tweak a few items, but they have the core of this behind them once those few items are corrected. It is entirely possible some of those people hit the nail right on the head and they have everything correct. Based on that wide range of information level for fiscal officers viewing this video, what is our training agenda today? Because there are some new fiscal officers viewing this video, The information is going to start right at the beginning, just like the other trainings. So what are we going to cover? We're going to talk about what is the issue, what is the core problem here, what are the deadlines and the timeline you need to look at for the rest of this year and into next. I'm going to show you how to efficiently evaluate your current account code structure. We're going to talk about determining the new appropriation account structure based on the final program code definitions. We will cover in the software how to add those new appropriation accounts to be used within your deadline. Those that file a tax budget need to have the accounts added first. We're going to talk about planning time for your payroll setup changes for the first wages in 2024 that will be posting to completely different account codes. And then I want you to consider the carryover encumbrance issues for year end, and I want you to be able to plan how to overcome those issues. If you've watched the previous presentations and are familiar with the nuts and bolts of the subject, you can jump ahead in the video to the section starting with determining the new appropriation account code structure. That's where the changes in all the examples would be taking place. At the beginner level, what is the Uniform Chart of Accounts? The auditor states chart of accounts is designed to organize revenue and expenditure postings to make it easy to prepare an annual financial report. Ohio libraries can use the Uniform Chart of Accounts even if they don't use the UAN software. But the UAN software is unique because it uses your posted transaction to these account codes throughout the year to automatically build the core of your annual financial reports. Keep in mind that the UAN software is never going to type the notes to your financial statement. You will always have to type your notes to the financial statement. Those that file regulatory will find that the cash reconciliation, the combined and combining reports, comparison of disbursement and encumbrance, and comparison of budget and actual receipts are reports that are automatically produced from your posted transactions throughout the year. You always have to prepare your schedule of debt service, schedule of outstanding debts, and the notes. But the core of your reports are automatically created by the software. Entities that file OCBOA need to do some classifications before they can produce their OCBOA financial reports. But again, the figures from your posted transaction are readily available for your reporting. With the UAN software, posting to the accurate appropriation accounts will automatically build an accurate annual financial report. If you're posting to the wrong account codes, you are not producing an accurate annual financial report. For our new fiscal officers, let's review the structure of an appropriation account. It's made up of 4 groups of numbers, like you see separated on the screen. First 4 digits are the fund number. 1,000 means general fund. Every library has a general fund. The next group of numbers is the program code. The program code describes an area of financial reporting within the fund it's attached to. In our example, the general fund. Program code 110 is used to describe the expenses in the general fund that are for the public services and programs. The next 3 digits are the object code. The object code gives the appropriation account its name. I have 110 on the screen as an example. This object code is for salaries. This is an object code that could be required in more than one program within the general fund. But when it's added to 1,110, it means general fund, public services and programs only, salaries. The last 4 digits is a cost center. Cost centers are a UAN software customizable field that may be created to create a division of a single appropriation account. 90% of our UAN clients will never create a cost center. They simply don't use them. Many people have overused and misused cost centers. I would caution you before adding any cost centers to your structure. So because I have cautioned you, I'm going to have to give you an example so you don't run crazy with this idea of customizing every one of your account codes. Don't do it. Now let's talk about the issue that is causing all of this conversation. What is the issue? Well, it's the 100 and 200 summary program codes in the library chart of accounts. Many years ago, there was only a 100 and 200 program code. And then many years ago as well, the detailed program codes were added to the structure. Under 100, there is a 110 and a 120, and under 200, there's a 210, 220, 230, 280. These summary program codes, 100 and 200, were intended to be replaced by the detailed program codes many years ago, meaning they were added to the chart of accounts. Library fiscal officers were notified they should start using them, and they kind of expected a voluntary change of account code structure and reporting to take place. Very few people voluntarily made that change. Now, this isn't just a UAN software issue. This is statewide, whether fiscal officers for libraries are using the Uniform Chart of Accounts or not. Their annual financial reporting is not at the detail program level. It's at the 100 or 200 program level. So every fiscal officer at a library in the state of Ohio should have started reporting at the detail program level, but there wasn't any effective date, there wasn't any elimination, there wasn't any discussion about we won't accept any financial reporting at this old level anymore. It just has gone on many years. The subject has been brought up more than once, and yet no deadlines were set or structural changes made to the actual chart of accounts. So now the 100 and 200 summary program codes are being eliminated from the UAN software. As a matter of fact, when our customers installed the year-end release in December, which gave them access to the new year, they could no longer add any appropriation accounts with the 100 or 200 program code from that point. So in your software this year, you could be spending from 100 and 200 accounts, but when you roll over to 2024, those will not be available. So the whole issue is 100 and 200 are being eliminated from the program codes that you can spend from, beginning with 2024. And we'll talk about that deadline. Now, I want you to look at this and understand the problem. There is a very large percentage of Ohio libraries reporting only to the 100 program code, and that never would have been accurate. The libraries should have always been reporting at least some to 100 and some to 200. If you look at what belongs in the 200 range, facility operation and maintenance, information services, business administration, that has been reported by many libraries as 100 for years. So you see, even within the two program codes, 100 and 200, there is not enough reporting at the right program level. So moving to the detail programs is doubly difficult because libraries were already only posting to one program incorrectly. So the deadlines. Let's talk about the deadlines that are occurring. Well, right on top of us now are entities that are required to file a 2024 tax budget with their county has to have these account codes ready in their software. So libraries associated with school districts have a May tax budget filing date. Yes, very few days from the day this video is being recorded. Libraries not associated with school districts have a July filing deadline for their 2024 tax budget. So these are the first deadlines of Ohio libraries. You can see every single Ohio library will not have the same deadline. those that have to file a tax budget in their county are going to have earlier deadlines than entities that are in a county that does not require the tax budget. Libraries that are located in a county that does not require a tax budget simply have to be ready to roll over to 2024 with the new appropriation accounts. So what's this timeline? Well, for the 2024 tax budget, which is prepared and adopted in 2023, you must add all of the new appropriation accounts with the detailed program codes before you add the budget financial worksheet in the UAN software. And then you will budget to the new program code structure. You can complete 2023 transactions with existing appropriation accounts. So you will continue posting live to the account code structure you started with in January. You cannot switch to the new account codes mid-year. Both Audit and Local Government Services has expressed that that will not be good financial reporting. If you started the year with the old summary accounts, you need to finish the year with the summary accounts. Now, granted, some of you will have had to add an appropriation account in 2023, and the software would not have let you use the 100 or 200 program. That is very different than trying to change your entire structure mid-year. They don't want you to do that. So if you start posting on the 100 and 200 summary codes, you need to complete the year with your current structure. Now, when you get to December 31st, as you're rolling over to the new year, you cannot carry any encumbrances over on any appropriation account with a 100 or 200 program code. That has not changed. The decision is final. There will be no carryover encumbrances from a 100 or 200 program code into the new year. January in 2024, all appropriation accounts with a 100 or 200 program code are eliminated. You won't even see them in the January financials. Now, all prior year reports will still show the history posted to those account codes that are being eliminated, but history is not going to be the same as posting live in 2024. Those account codes will not be there in 2024. You will have to post to your new detailed program code structure. So where do I start this process? Well, it hasn't changed since we first started this discussion with UAN. You're going to evaluate your current appropriation account structure, identify all the account codes using the 100 or 200 appropriation program code that has to be changed for the 2024 budget, and then determine the new appropriation account codes to be added in UAN in order to add the 2024 tax budget with the new account codes. Remember, in that tax budget, you are going to be budgeting to the new program code structure, not the old. So what is the best method to evaluate my current account code structure? Well, we recommend that you export to an Excel spreadsheet your current appropriation account structure. The software has always been able to do this. If you go to Accounting Reports and Statements, Appropriation Reports, from the drop-down list, select Appropriation Export. It'll be the last report on the list. Select all of your accounts, not just the 100 and 200s. You want a bigger picture than that. So select all of your accounts and click Export. On the Export Save form, it is automatically going to put this document into your CUAN e-files folder, and it'll give it a vague name. So if you direct it by clicking on your Documents folder and then giving it a better name, such as New Program Codes or Cited Appropriation Account Crosswalk, then give it that name and click Save. And then let's open that spreadsheet and evaluate. This is what the export document looks like. It's an Excel spreadsheet of our appropriation status report. There are many columns in this list that you just don't need. So what I want you to do is copy this tab to a new tab. You can copy this tab by right-clicking on the tab and say copy and move it to the end. And what you want to do is keep the original structure and then move on to the edited structure. So I'm going to right click on this tab and copy, put it at the end, and then I'm going to click on that tab and delete the columns I don't need. That way I have the original structure and my next edited version. I like to see the progression of the original version and then each of the edits so I can make sure of the path that I followed hasn't eliminated some expenditure by accident. This is how I edited tab 2. I eliminated all the columns I didn't need, and then I highlighted all of the 100 and 200 program codes in my entire account code structure. Now, I'm not taking away any of the other account codes because I want a spreadsheet that includes every account code I use, not just the ones I have to change. I want a spreadsheet that I'm going to be able to use to figure out budgets. Now, once I get to this structure, I'm going to add a couple of columns. I'm not going to mess with any of the data. I'm simply adding extra columns to this page. And now I have a first column added on the left that is going to be my new program code. I added the green column on the right, which says 2024 budget by new accounts. And you can see I've been fiddling with some numbers there. And then I added a column in gray at the right for 2024 temporary appropriations, because this is my master worksheet that I'm going to be using to budget 2024. Normally, when you're doing the budget, you're sitting in the UAN budget financial worksheet and you're looking to the left at the history on the same account code as the current year, and you just budget to the right. You won't be able to do that. The 100 accounts aren't going to be anywhere near the new account code structure. So it's not going to be very easy for you to do that within the budget financial worksheet. I highly recommend you use the spreadsheet to figure out numbers and then put them into the budget financial worksheet so it will complete your actual printing of the tax budget form. So the work is going to be done on the spreadsheet this time. So you can see that I started adding rows and grids. I want to draw your attention up to the salary. So we used to pay all salaries from 1,100, 110. But now we're going to eliminate the summary and go to the detail. And I have employees that will be paid from 110, 120, 210, 220, and 230. That means I need 5 grids of salary OPRS Medicare. Now, I want to point out a major difference in this example and those that were presented last October and in March of this year. Workers' compensation does not have to be divided out by program. It is very clearly in the definition under business. So I'm not going to divide out workers' comp. I'm going to put it in business administration. So clearly there have been some major changes in the program definition that clarify what has to be divided. Now, I don't have that as an example on my screen, but some of you pay insurance benefits, medical, vision, dental. If you do, they have to be divided out by program at the same percentage as the employees. And we're going to talk about splitting the employees between multiple programs later on in this presentation. But workers' comp is one of those things that is very clear that does not have to be segregated into multiple programs. You can see that my travel and meeting expenses very clearly has to be split into 2 account codes because we do pay for travel and meeting expenses for our 110 program employees. We also pay for travel and meeting expenses for our business administration, the fiscal officer and the director. Another one that was clarified was the property insurance premiums will not belong to facility operation and maintenance. The liability and property insurance premiums will belong to the 230 program. It's important for you to understand the correct sources for guidance in the program code change process. If you need guidance about what program code to use after reading the frequently asked questions and definitions document, refer to frequently asked question number 12. you will find the contact information for the Auditor of State's Local Government Services. Local Government Services is your resource if you have questions about placing an item in the correct program. Now, if you have questions about the proper use of an object code, please refer to the Library Chart of Accounts list of object codes before contacting Local Government Services. Object code definitions have not changed. We've provided you with the Library Chart of Accounts as a handout with this video. Please remember that the change in object codes is not part of the required program code change. However, we've talked to many of you who were hired into your position with the UAN software already set up to its existing account code structure, and you have found that some of the object codes were not used correctly. Well, this is the time those should be fixed. However, you should be able to refer to the object code definitions to find those correct object codes. After reviewing the object code list and definitions, if you still need guidance, reach out to Local Government Services. When it comes to the use of the UAN software to add the new program code accounts, please contact UAN support. Later in this video, I will show you how to add a new appropriation account in the UAN software, but don't hesitate to contact us if you need help with that. Please keep in mind that all libraries will not end up with the identical appropriation account structure within the detailed program codes. I've found after speaking with several library fiscal officers since this subject was introduced that library operations can be vastly different. All libraries do not operate the same. Back in September 2022, when I was first asked to prepare training about changing to the detailed program codes, I didn't even know that the library books and other materials for patron use were known as the collection. Please forgive my ignorance on the subject, since UAN personnel are not trained in library financial reporting other than the use of the UAN software. And remember, the UAN software produces those financial reports based on the account code structure you're using. So we would never have known. In September, I really thought that a good look at those program names would be enough to restructure a library's chart of accounts, with a few exceptions. The release of the final program code definition has proved me wrong in many areas. Many of the examples I used in the restructured chart of accounts examples in the October 2022 and March 2023 webinars were not accurate. Now, while I understand that a complete change in program codes was always going to be a difficult undertaking, I am humbled by how incorrect my first attempts were. Please do not use the examples on my spreadsheets in this webinar. It may contain errors. I've not received any guidance other than the program code definitions that you have in your hands. You are more knowledgeable about your library operations than I am. Please get guidance from Local Government Services if those definitions don't answer questions about where something belongs in a program. Okay, let's spend a moment talking about determining how an employee's pay is going to be allocated from one program code to multiple program codes, because some of you have a difficult structure. Let's address the easy ones first. Employees that are going to be paid from one program code because they only work with patrons on the floor. They don't do anything in collection. They don't do anything with the IT department. They don't work with the business administration. This employee is only going to be paid from one account code. There's your easy one. So allocate those first. Budget the employer expenses to the same program as the earnings. So take care of those employees that are only do one job. They are really only belong to one program. Then start doing the more difficult ones. Employees working in multiple programs. So many of you have employees who work part in the IT, part under public services and programs, and maybe they help out a little in the fiscal office. You're going to have to think about how their salary is going to be allocated to produce an accurate annual financial report, because remember, that's the goal, to be able to see what it costs to run each program within your library. This is going to be vastly different library to library. So document your reason for deciding on hours split between programs. We have some libraries who have already started tracking hours, not because they're going to pay hours by program, but because they wanted to come up with an idea of the percentage of time over a period of 6 to 8 months that those employees were putting time in each area. Audit and local government services have said in both of the previous trainings that if you can come up with a reasonable explanation for why you've decided to pay an employee's wage at a percentage from one program to another, then that is going to be acceptable to audit. Some people are not going to do it by percentages. They are going to track the actual hours. So these percentages will be applied to related expenses as well. So once you figure out how much salary should be allocated to each of the salary programs, you will then be able to figure the employer share of Medicare, OPERS, and then you're going to look at your insurance invoices and multiply each employer share by the percentage used for that employee's salary. Now, I realize we're saying the word salary. The account code says salary is the description. Some of your employees are part-time and they're paid hourly. We understand that. We're not talking about the difference between an hourly person and a salary person. We're talking about splitting their gross pay per paycheck by an established percentage. So once you've established a reason, make sure you're typing that up, make sure you have it for audit, and then if those percentages change at some point, you may need to reallocate the appropriations. I would use separate spreadsheets or documents to calculate the salary allocation by program code, and then once that salary amount by program is established, I put it in my spreadsheet here and then multiply the employer share of Medicare and OPERS by the salary in each program. In that way, you've set aside enough Medicare and OPERS to meet the salary appropriation. If you pay a portion of the employee insurance, and I don't have an example of that here, review the employer share of the premiums by employee and then calculate the amount to budget by program based on those percentages you've split their salaries. Then I'm going to put all those figures into this master spreadsheet for the 2024 budget. Remember, I'm not changing any appropriation budgets this year. I've got my permanent appropriations adopted to the old accounts. I'm spending on them the rest of this year. It would be very difficult to use this master worksheet format in the current account code order to add the new accounts into UAN or enter the amounts into the budget financial worksheet. So when I think this master spreadsheet is complete, I made a copy of this tab and placed it at the end of the worksheet and then renamed the tab to App Sorted by Program, meaning appropriation accounts sorted by program. Then I sorted the grid by the new program account column so I can see each individual program's account code structure. Using this method, I was able to view each program and think about what may not be included in the structure. I also deleted the old account code column and the 2023 budget column because now I'm really focusing on 2024 budget figures. The amounts highlighted in blue are the items I didn't have allocated to the program, but when I thought about the expenses that should be paid here, I knew I was missing some account codes from the structure. I reviewed the chart of account object codes and added the additional items. You may find that after posting to one single appropriation program code, you've shoved several different kinds of expenses into one account code, and now that they're split into individual programs, you need some more clarity and appropriation object codes that meet the needs of this program. You just want to make sure that each program has an account code structure that will support all its required expenses. This is my new account code structure for the 110 and 120 programs. Remember, this is a UAN support example. Your library is not going to be exactly the same as my fake Buckeye library. Libraries are widely different in their finances, so make sure you're not just copying my structure that has no basis in reality at your library. Here's my sample 210 and 220 programs. And then here's the last group, my 230 and the 910 program. Remember, we haven't talked about the 910 program because it's transfers out, and we already had a 910 program on our transfers out account. That's not part of the program change. So don't forget account codes that were already correct. That's why I wanted you to make your spreadsheet of your complete chart of accounts rather than only the ones that needed to be changed. You don't want to lose track of account codes that were already accurate. We want to think about a few more things before you start adding your new appropriation accounts into the UAN software. First of all, you have to add the new accounts in UAN before you add the budget worksheet. But remember, once you add the budget financial worksheet, all account codes in the system at that point will be locked down in use the rest of the year. That means nothing will be removable. So do some housekeeping by removing any old revenue accounts, appropriation accounts, or funds, such as CARES Act, which went away in 2021. Some people still have that old CARES Act fund. So if you don't want to bring that into 2024, make sure you do the housekeeping, removing old things first. Please rethink the use of cost centers. Several cost centers on a structure that only had one program code in your general fund wasn't that difficult to maintain. But when you are now expanding to 5 separate programs, are you sure it's sensible to move forward with the same cost center structure? You may want to eliminate the cost centers. Cost centers on salary accounts are absolutely not recommended. Please listen to me. I've had a few fiscal officers from libraries email into UAN their chart of accounts, and I saw 50 cost centers spread throughout their old account code structure, and they're planning on moving that into their new program structure. Please don't put cost centers on salary accounts. Employees paid from multiple programs should not have a cost center on their salary accounts because it will make it more difficult for you to allocate the employer share of Medicare and OPERS with those salary accounts, with cost centers. It doesn't work well. If you're going to use cost centers moving forward, all existing cost centers are going to be available to use on your new accounts. And if you're adding a new cost center or two, please don't run mad with this idea. They have to be added before you start adding the appropriation accounts. You're going to add those at accounting maintenance cost centers. What it looks like in the software, this is a nice clean library, has no cost centers, highly recommended. They can be used, but please use them sparingly. Click the add button, give it a number, give it a name, and save, and it will be available to add to your appropriation accounts. Moving on to adding appropriation accounts, you're going to be at accounting maintenance appropriation accounts. You will see all your current appropriation accounts listed there. Click the add button to begin adding the new accounts. Notice I've got a big red X on the right side. Everybody wants to draw their eye over there and check mark departments. It's not necessary. Segregation by departments is used by only a few UAN clients across the state, and I don't believe any libraries are using department segregation. It would make no sense for you to do that. So I'm going to X that out and only show the left side from this point. You're going to choose the fund, the program, and if you don't use cost centers, you're going to start with 4 zeros. And then in the group of object codes you will see listed at the bottom, you're simply going to check all those that apply to that program. Very simple to add multiple account codes to the same program. It's going to look something like this. So I've chosen 1,110, left the cost centers at 40, and I simply started checking my account codes and scrolled down further in the list, checked all of the account codes that belong to 1,110. And when I had them all check marked, I clicked save. So you don't save between each account code. You check all of the account codes that belong to that program, then click save. Now, once all the new accounts for 2024 are added, you're ready to use the UAN budget module to prepare your 2024 tax budget. You're going to go to Budget, Transactions, Financial Worksheets, and click the Add button. What it looks like: Budget, Transactions, Financial Worksheets, click the Add button, and you're going to be looking at the Add Financial Worksheet form, just like you always have in the past. You're going to give it a name. You're going to select the funds you want to include in the tax budget. I'm only selecting general fund for this example. You have to mark whether you want to include prior year carryovers. That would be from 22 to 23 into the tax budget. This isn't any different than it's been in years past. You always have to make a selection regarding the prior year carryovers, and you click OK. Nothing's changed in this so far. On the Edit Financial Worksheet form, it opens up to the Revenues tab. You can see across the top, Revenues, Expenditures, Other. This isn't any different than it's looked in the past. You can see you'll be putting in the estimated revenue for 2024 in the far right column. There's no difference in revenues. We haven't had any discussion whatsoever in this video about changing revenue codes. So budget your revenues. And then when you go to the expenditure tabs, the first thing you're going to see at the top of that list is your 100 program codes that you are not going to budget. Don't enter budgets on year 2024 at the 100 account code level. And this is what I said earlier in the video. When you come into the tax budget, you're going to see the 2 prior years and the current year on the old 100 accounts. But you need to scroll down to the new account codes to start entering the 2024 tax budget. That's going to be further down the list. So on the same tab, but further down the list in the general fund. Completing the tax budget won't be any different than it's been in other years. You are simply budgeting to different account codes. So now let's move past talking about the tax budget for 2024 and talk about completing 2023. So in the accounting software, all your new accounts are going to print on the appropriation status report with your current year budgeted accounts. Remember, there's no budgets on them in your current year. You only budgeted them in the tax budget for the new year. Do not deactivate the new accounts until after you've completed the 2024 financial worksheet. If the accounts are deactivated, you can't put any numbers on the 2024 column. So wait until you've completed the tax budget, and then you can deactivate the new appropriation accounts to the new program codes, but they're going to continue to appear on those appropriation reports. Deactivated accounts do not appear on the drop-down list of any add purchase order or add payment forms. So that would be the reason you might want to deactivate them, so they're not getting in the way of making current year purchase orders or payments. When you open temporary mode and have access to 2024, you can activate the new accounts in the new year. Year end 2023, you need to be prepared. Libraries that did not have to file a tax budget for 2024 have a lot more time to figure out this account code structure. So remember, some libraries have to file a tax budget for 24 in May. Some are going to be filing that in July. And those that don't have to file the tax budget this year will have to have this information all ready to go when they open up the new year. You would be really wise to consider September your deadline to be ready. Now, that's just a soft recommendation from UAN support. We get hundreds of calls in late December and early January. Last year, we were getting 200 calls a day. That's without the library appropriation program change. You will not be able to get your questions answered quickly if you wait until December to start working on this. So I would consider September 30th your soft deadline to have your worksheet ready, sorted by program, at least figured out for the amounts of your temporary appropriations, and have some pretty good figures for your permanent appropriations as well. All entity types need to think about the purchase orders that you're going to open in 2024. Remember, there's not going to be a duplicate button for January's POs that you've duplicated every year. The duplicate button is not going to show any prior year purchase orders that used to be on a 100 or 200 account code. So on paper, figure out your purchase orders. I would print the purchase order status in 2023 and just go down and handwrite what account codes you're going to place those purchase orders on in 2024. Once you get those in 2024, your duplicate button from that point forward is going to have options for you. Remember that you cannot carry over any encumbrance from a 100 or 200 program code from 2023 to 2024. That process has been seamless in UAN for many years. You will not be able to carry over any encumbrance on a 100 or 200 program code. So plan ahead what you're going to do about those. Do your best to pay all of your taxes and retirement from 2023 wages before December 31st, 2023. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do that because some of you are going to have biweekly wages that have to have an OPRS report with wages in both 23 and January 24. So when can payroll setup be changed to the new account code structure in UAN? After the last paycheck is posted in 2023 for each of your frequencies, and before the first paycheck of that frequency has to be paid in 2024, that's your window of opportunity. Mark your calendar so you schedule the earliest date to get this off your year-end to-do list. As soon as the last paycheck of each frequency is posted in December, the clock is ticking for when the next paycheck has to be added, edited, and posted. So if you are a bi-weekly payer, you will only have 13 days between the last paycheck posted in December to the first paycheck posted. Give yourself some wiggle room there. Mark your calendar and set aside some uninterrupted time. Don't forget training mode. You could load training mode and practice editing payroll before year end. You can do that as soon as you get your account code set up for the tax budget. So nothing stops you from going into training mode, at least figuring out how to edit the structure. And call the support line. Ask for some help with it if you don't understand where all of the account codes are buried. So you've got earnings, overtime, leaves. Every one of those leaves has an account code in it. You would have to update everything, plus the employer share of Medicare and OPRS. So make sure you're using that time between after the tax budget's filed in July And about September 30th, again, there's our least busy time on the support line is between July and September. That's your time to call for some help figuring this out. Once you're confident with this process, you're going to be comfortable doing it at year end. That is the complete presentation for the library program code change. Remember, if you need help with the software, you give us a call on the support line. We'll be happy to help you. If you need help with those appropriation programs, please read the definitions first before calling local government services. If you need help with the object codes, please look at the object code definitions in the chart of accounts before calling local government services to save yourself some time. You may find the accounts you need by reading through those definitions. Thank you for attending, and don't forget to self-report your training hours.